Now.
That was scary.
Hello, everyone. We got a few people in here. We'll give it a little bit more. Aaron, hello. And I know you guys can put it into the chat if you want. Let me know where you guys are from. I see some friendly faces in here that are all coming in. Joel, hello. Britt, see you. Sarah Moss, good to see you. Nice and early on the West Coast. Nicole, I see you in here. Michelle, got a whole crew. You guys, nice to see you guys here. We're going to just wait another minute and we'll get started right at about 2 past the hour here as we got some people coming in. There we go. See some more friendly faces. Ellen, hello. Christian. Good to see you guys. Excited for everybody here. It's going to be a good one. You guys got a packed panel with lots of information. Perfect. I'm going to share my screen here for you guys. Joel, I love your question. Is this the romper room? Yes, you're dating yourself. That just made me laugh. Oh, I love it. Yes, it is the romper room. And hopefully you guys, everyone can kind of see my screen here. You guys should be good to go. And I think we're going to have more people that are coming in, but we'll let them come in. The meeting is going to be 100% recorded for everyone. And I will get this kicked off for everyone here. So you guys definitely welcome here to Navigating CRM Opportunities for Sales Excellence. My name is Erin McKenzie. I am our VP of Client Services here at Newberry, and stepping in for the day for Katie Cridler, who's generally your host of these. And we're really excited to kind of give you truly dive into everything when it relates to kind of the CRM, what can we do? And you guys have a esteemed panel here with Tim Jackson, VP of Technology and Operations with Elevation Talent Group, also one of our senior consultants here with Newberry. We got Harry Staniforth, who is an expert when all things Salesforce, also a consultant here at Newberry Partners. And then our very own Graham, who's one of our principal consultants, and I'm sure many of you have seen him on many calls before. So with that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand this over to Tim. He's going to take you guys through the next 45 minutes and walk you through absolutely everything, and then leave some time for Q&A. As we are going through this, feel free to put your questions into the actual chat. I'll be monitoring it, and we'll make sure that the team here gets back to you on any questions that you have. And with that, Tim, I will hand it over to you.
Hey, thanks, Aaron. Appreciate it, and welcome everybody. The real stars of the show, of course, are Graham and Harry. They're on the front line. They see these issues a lot. But I have to say also, in my work in talking to people at SIA events, ASA types of things, there are some significant trends that speak to the need to improve CRM. I think the one starts really is the fact that we are in an industry trend that's flat for revenue. Many firms have seen year-over-year declines, but we also know that the secular trends for our business are strong. The role of flexibility in the labor supply chain is not going away. In fact, it's actually increasing. Lots of teams have challenges with their clients in terms of getting to know who they are and what their requirements are beyond just getting that next order. And that's where CRMs come in, the ability to not only discover orders, but to understand clients better. And if you use these tools effectively, they give you an opportunity to make that happen. The role of CRM, getting to know customers, it goes beyond that, of course, because CRMs, it's all about a data story. To use these tools, engagement, reporting, and analytics, we need good data, and especially when you start talking about the AI tools, data quality bar, it's set even higher. Delivery has always been our focus and remains so for lots of our firms. But really, the next piece of this is how we bridge marketing and delivery. Most firms have a strong B2B strategy, but the secret sauce of these executing on B2B strategy is making sure that we link marketing, sales, and delivery. And really too many firms focus just on marketing tactics and then fail to connect those to their sales effectively. And finally, the last issue is one that I think those of us at Newberry often hear. It's boy, I've spent a lot of money, but people still do their own thing when it comes to sales and processes and disciplines, and we don't get the data we need. So it's those kind of 5 points that have motivated us to come to the table today. So thanks, Aaron. I'll move forward. So the first real question we're going to stir for our team really is the disconnect around CRM adoption. Imagine you're standing at the SA event and someone says, hey, my team, all they use is Outlook and Excel. And I don't, we get together every Thursday or Friday morning or Monday morning for our stand-up calls. It sort of works, but boy, I know we can do better. And that kind of we can do better is such a common ask. Graham, first you get first crack at this topic. What are some of your thoughts as it relates to this topic?
Yeah, thank you, Tim, and welcome everybody. Thank you for having me. I think for me, the big thing here when people are using different systems and operating outside of their core CRM tends to be because they don't really have a consistent understanding of why they're using a system. So they're lacking some basic processes, and they're not really thinking about a connected system internally. So maybe there isn't a vision sold and within the team, so they don't really have that drive and the desire to use that. So everything seems to be a little bit disjointed. And the biggest challenge with a lot of these is when clients buy technology to try and solve that deficiency, when in fact they need to look at other steps preceding that first. There's issues with why they're not trusting that system is probably because the data is poor and they're not getting the desired outputs, or maybe they've got undocumented or chaotic processes that they're asked to follow in a different way that they don't like. So maybe the teams haven't been consulted. So a lot of this tends to come back to understanding the business first, understanding the needs first, and then worrying about what the technology can do later. And I always think of it in a little way in terms of always starting with the vision. That's the why. This is why we're trying to do this. This is what we're trying to achieve as a business. The data, the accuracy in that data and what the data we're capturing, that's the who. Who are we actually targeting? How are we using that data is the process. And if the who and the how are not right, the data and the process, it's very hard to make the system work for you. The what bits are we doing and what data are we updating, because we can't trust it. And as soon as the trust is lost within a team, they tend to use other systems that they prefer. So generally, in my mind, this comes from a systemic issue with the internal process and the way that things have been set up, not really understanding that fully.
Yeah, I think I would agree with you there, Graham. You summed it up very well. But essentially, everything can kind of be linked back to the business processes and understanding what it is you require. People like to blame their CRM system or just think it's an instant solution, but it's just not, unfortunately. You want to get that collaboration, and the single source of truth is pretty vital. So you want everyone using that one system, but unless people feel like it's actually going to work for them and you've incorporated them in the design of it, they're just not going to use it. So it's working out, like you say, whether it's a training issue with the system itself and you've just not got their buy-in and explained to them the benefits of it, or whether it's actually that the system just doesn't work full stop and there's customization that's required. And looking at the current system you've got is better than just picking a new one, because essentially you need to fix what you've got rather than just saying, oh, we'll just buy a different system or get them into that because it's exciting. It won't solve the issues if you haven't done that first step. And I'd also say you kind of want to look at the incentives. Why would you want them to use the system? Explain the benefits, as we've talked about before. You can use KPIs and performance metrics and drive them from there, and that will help kind of get them to do that for the sales point of view. But you want to create tools that really incentivize them from an excitement point of view, like dashboards or pieces of reporting that will give them insights that they can't currently get. And I think just explaining that benefit and being more aligned with one system would be better. And then when you've got the better data, it means better reporting, and then it means better results. But I just use it as an example. I think often businesses think it's a great approach to have one core team that can design everything for them. But what you need to do is incorporate everyone. And obviously you can't get every single employee involved, but you want to make sure that they're all aware and know what's going on, and you're speaking to different people from different departments. But I think people naturally dislike change, and so you need to incentivize them to want to move to something and show them the good parts of it, rather than just talking about this new thing that they've got to learn, because people don't like new change.
I think the there's a term in the business, vendor exhaustion. Sometimes people just get tired of hearing their story, and so they go look for a new tool, the shiny object. To Harry and Graham's point, this issue of methodologies just seems like you got to have an approach. You got to have use that approach with the tool you already own before you go and spend a lot of money. So I think you're going to hear that again throughout our conversations today. Graham, Harry, we covered this topic decently. I'm going to move on.
Okay.
So I think there was good reference here to the role of data, and data just you can't. It is such a critical component here. I hear the comment, "Hey, our team is facing just a lot of frustration. Reports aren't right. We can't get the understanding that we were promised from our business analytics, and we all blame the bad data, but it's like, wow, that's a big ask. How do you fix it? How do you get your arms around that? Harry, I think you're going to take the first crack at this topic. Is there a magic pill for data cleansing?
There's no magic pill for anything, unfortunately. But I think it's all about, and it is a cliche, but collecting the right data rather than the most data. I think with most clients that I've experienced, the first focus that when you talk to them about any kind of data migration or anything is, let's take it all. But actually you need to kind of draw back from that and look at what are the key details that you need to drive business, and try and keep that data entry and that collection as concise as possible. Because whether it's your internal users or external clients or customers, you don't want them importing more information than is required. I don't know about you, but I go through so many things these days, and it just requires you to put in every bit of possible information about you just to get the most basic of response. And in the end, what usually happens for me is I just go, oh, I can't be bothered with this. I'm going to find a different provider, or I give up on it because it's just too long. So I think staggering the data collection really improves the process. And I think that's what Salesforce does really well, is you have a lot of different ways in which you can require things at different stages of input, particularly through the lead generation process. So you're not asking people for data up front that isn't relevant at that point, and you're looking forward and saying, okay, well, I know I'm going to need this information to solve this deal and get it over the line, but not now. So why ask them for information that's just not relevant at the moment? Because they're not going to want to give it to you, and they don't have a trust relationship with you at the moment. So I'm not going to want to give you my date of birth or any kind of details like that until I built that rapport up, and until essentially there's a carrot at the end of it, which is either if I'm a candidate, it's getting the job, or if I'm a client, it's giving you information because you're providing me with candidates, and obviously numerous other sales examples. So I think that's really important. But what I would say with that I see most is just data migration, trying to take everything possible across. And you look at data from sort of 10 years ago, is it really relevant, to be honest with you? And what's changing on your new system? Where are you going to kind of move that information across? A lot of people think, oh, we want to just keep this bit of information here, but it's from a conversation that was had with a client 10 years ago. It's just not relevant. So I think you kind of want to strip it back as much as possible. And then on the data entry side of things, at least for your internal users, I think you always want to ask yourself what the bare minimum your employees need to get the job done, and work from there, because this is normally the maximum that the majority of users will want to enter. So, why force them to do anything more than that? And if you can build some automation in there, if you know that every time someone populates this field or they follow this process, you need something to be generated off the back of that, and you can take that out of the user's hands, then I'd always say try and run with that, because you're making their lives easier. And then it builds back to the first question we talked about: why would they use the system? Make it easier for them, make it more simple, and show them the benefits of it.
Yeah, I can completely concur with all those points. The key thing for me with all of these things is if you could, would you wipe it and start again? Would you delete everything and start again, build a new status, a new system, capture the data you want, and build it fresh from the ground up? The reality is most businesses, that data point is too valuable for them. But just having more data isn't valuable. Having the right data, as Harry alluded to, is completely accurate. But one point Harry mentioned, I just want to re-stress is I think the capturing of that data all comes down to trust. A client and a customer of yours has got to trust you to give you certain bits of information. You can't go asking for all the correct, best billing information, all their bank details, everything else, and things that you need in that very first phone call. You build that information over time as you build that relationship and that trust with them. So you need the system to be able to require the information at the right point. I know Salesforce does that very well. It's very easy to do that. We can do that same thing in Bullhorn, where we can build customizations to require certain bits of information as people go through various different points in their life cycle and their journey as a customer with you. The key here is that what we're asking for is we want to make the system as simple as possible to capture, but capture the right data at the right point. Ultimately, that's where we want to get to, and that's going to solve the data health. The problem with reporting is it just highlights bad data. People blame reporting for not being accurate or being a problem, but it's not. It's because of the bad data within the system. But they don't want to go back and address that problem because it always feels like too big a problem to solve. But it can be solved. You just need to take a deep breath, take a step forward, and have a conversation logically about what we need to do with it. You can't get we talk about a lot of technology debt and having sunk costs within technology, but data is exactly the same thing. Just because you acquired it 10 years ago, nowadays it isn't about acquiring and holding data, it's about accessing and using data. So change your mindset and shift and think about where we can access fresh data and new data and make sure that it's up to date, but only relevant data you're going to use. That's probably my fundamental piece.
Graham and Harry, if we were standing at an SIA event and you guys told me that, and we were standing with a drink in our hand, I'd nod my head, so hell yes. But then I'd also say, have you ever seen it really work? Is it possible? Is this aspirational? Can I get there? Do you see examples, and have you worked with people that have actually executed this? Is it something you feel like firms have gotten close to?
Yeah, I'd say so. I think ultimately, again, and it's just the same message over and over, but it comes down to how the users are going to use the system, and you can't get the perfect user. You're always going to have someone that just wants to bypass and is lazy, and they have the information, but they can't be bothered to go and find it and put it in the correct fields, and they're going to bypass it and do what they can just to get to the end result. So you can look at restricting that and using certain fields and different types rather than allowing them to have free text and things like that. And there's all these number of things you can do within these various systems to restrict that. But ultimately, you're never going to get to a perfect outcome. You can use the reporting to highlight where things are falling down, and you can use systems and automations to correct those. But ultimately, it comes down to showing the users why inputting the correct information is the best benefit and the best way to process, and giving them the benefit off of that. But yeah, I think it's definitely something that's really helpful, and it's definitely possible. And I've seen it with a number of people where they improve it greatly. Getting to that 100% perfect, I don't think you'll ever have, but you get 98%. I think I would commit to.
I'll take 98%. But yeah, I agree with that. I mean, we definitely see it a lot within Newbury. We do a lot of data health checks and system health checks and the two go hand in hand. So we do a lot of data health checks where we're trying to identify bad data points within the system. When you've got hundreds of thousands of candidates, hundreds of thousands of contacts, lots of placements, you tend to get lost in the volume. You don't know how bad it is because you're only ever able to see and scratch into the surface. You think you're capturing more, and therefore more is better, but it's not. So we do a lot of health checks where we're analyzing that data, orphan statuses, records without email addresses and phone numbers, ones where we know addresses are incorrect, people that haven't been contacted, and just trying to bubble that information back up to the surface so that we can do something with it and make a decision. Typically that decision will be to archive or to remove or to get rid of or to clean. But doing that is only a one-time event. It doesn't fix the problem long-term. So that's when we need to think about how we can add those extra layers into a system. So we put validations in to make sure that certain fields can only be entered in the right format, like email addresses in the right format, and automatically not allow generic things like test@test.com to be added in and things like that, so that they can't put bad data in the first place. So you attack these sort of things from data from two angles. One is a cleanup, and there are absolutely tools out there for that, either using data engineering techniques or third-party tools that can look at the data. But then there's the ongoing data management and data health element, where you need to then just provide different control measures and different restrictions within the system to make sure that future data getting into the system is in a controlled way.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate it. Aaron, can you kick us forward one maybe? So we talked about before this linkage of marketing to sales, and the problem calls out is, hey, my team makes cold calls. I want them making warm lead calls. My CRM, the leads aren't great. And I know the marketing team would say the leads are great. Your salespeople are to blame, and the salespeople blame the marketing people. So Graham, you've seen this before. What are some of your thoughts?
Yeah. So see this so often, it's untrue. So basically, what we see here is the root cause is usually a misalignment between marketing and sales in its purest sense. So if we think about typical staffing businesses, there's a slight divide geographically in different countries and the way we work, but also within different sectors, whether we've got 360-degree recruiters where they're doing sales and resourcing, or we've got a sales function and a delivery function. Ultimately, what tends to happen is marketing has been bolted on, and in a lot of staffing firms, it's only in the more recent years, less than 10 years or so, where marketing teams are becoming more and more prevalent, and we're starting to see some value from that. Up until that point, they were more brochureware, supporting other functions, making things look pretty rather than adding value and genuine quality leads. But that's absolutely evolved, and the problem is there's still a misalignment. So they're generating good quality leads, but they're not necessarily flowing into the same system. So what we tend to find is that marketing teams may have their own system. They may have gone slightly off-piste from the core CRM, and they're using another tool. So for example, we see a lot of customers that use Bullhorn, but their marketing team are using HubSpot, for example, or their sales team are using HubSpot outside of that. That's not a problem. It's a great tool, and it can be integrated with Bullhorn. But the problem is, if that's not integrated, or there's no alignment with the data, we have one team doing one thing, generating information, but we're not following all of the touch points through into the core CRM. So when it gets to placement, we're not able to backtrack and effectively know where exactly the source that it came from, exactly the right touch points, all the influences that happen by the different teams. So what we want to do is make sure that we've got all of that alignment in place. So with one of these, one of the key things here is either allowing different systems to work and having them integrated, or utilizing what's within the system you've got. So if you're using Bullhorn, how can we use leads and develop the leads, engage with those leads, take them through their life cycle until we convert them into a customer, and then taking them through that process, or doing it outside of the system, so in the third-party system, and then but connecting that into Bullhorn, so we're still flowing that data in with all the various data points. That's probably the key thing here. It's just that misalignment. It's a mature product in so much that marketing department's been around for a long time, but within staffing, it's definitely an immature relationship within the rest of the business. For most businesses, they're evolving. We're seeing lots of questions around it, but it's definitely not a mature area yet, and it's a growing area, and there's so much value to be had there, but it's not necessarily aligned and joined up at the moment.
I mean, sum that up very well. I think it's obviously the key thing is the disconnect between marketing and sales, and seeing what information you're retrieving on the marketing side of things with these leads, and seeing it, firstly, is that information useful information from a sales point of view? And then if it is, why isn't it being utilized? And like you say, if it's not coming into the system correctly, or being assigned to the correct people, then that's probably the falling down of things. So it's trying to, again, go back to trying to use the system in a more collaborative way. But trying to determine and overcome the points of failure within the lead collection and the assignment process. And obviously that's something that's kind of a core offering within the Salesforce piece. And I think it does it very well as a whole. But looking at the business processes, is if you're just not retrieving that correct information that the sales team are going to use or find valuable, then they're just not going to use it. And it might also be something that they're just not looking at themselves, because there is that disconnect, and they don't want to say, oh, I want to use this lead, I want to do it they want to do it their own way. So I think looking at lead qualification as well, and just determining the reason the sales aren't following up on those leads and breaking that process down into stages, and that will help you find these failure points a little bit more. But ultimately, as well, I think determining whether those leads are valuable and looking at the alternative processes that the sales team are using, because it might not be that they are within the system, but you can maybe look at that, and it might be that actually they're effective as well, and trying to incorporate those into the system in a different way, because it's not always the case that the lead side of things is the best. Having that open mind and looking at both sides of things, and just speaking to your teams, I think that's always the best thing, and getting the feedback from them. It's again, it's another one of these cliche things, but they're going to tell you why they're not going to use the system, and it's up to you basically to demonstrate the benefit and the value of using the system. And if it's not there, then that's a failure from the first part, and you've got to go back and re-engineer that system in a way that does give them that benefit and value.
Yeah, that idea of being honest with yourself in terms of what that relationship is. I'm getting leads, but they're poor leads, or you agree that they're good leads, but you're not able to assign them properly and follow up. All that engineering that can happen between lead scoring when it gets converted to a sales prospect. These are all, if you're honest with yourself, you can use your technology to make that process easier. Great points, Harry. I love it. Aaron, you want to kick us forward? Yeah. So everybody always wants to talk about AI. So we decided not to make that the top item. So just thinking about from a CRM perspective, Harry, what's your instant reaction to, I need AI? What are you going to give for me, Harry?
It's a difficult one with AI because it's undoubtedly really exciting, and the potential is right up there. I think I was saying with you earlier in the week, I think most of the time what you see in the day-to-day life take out of the professional life is just generated images that are posted on Twitter that tend to just be memes or whatever. And I think that's what it's utilized for in just the general topic the most at the moment. I think they're trying to push it more into the professional side of things. And obviously Salesforce has its Copilot and Einstein offering. And I haven't done a great deal of work with it previously, but just because it's something that I don't think is that helpful for small to medium-sized businesses at the moment. But there's a lot of talk about what it can bring in terms of analytics and the insights that it brings to improve business processes. I think where we see it most currently used is on the service side of things. And you probably experienced this yourselves, whether it's separately to your business, but like chatbots or customer analytics, when they generate the automatic prompts and responses. I think that's where we see it most at the moment. And I think that's where it's been most helpful to businesses. I mean, I personally think that there's still too much input and setup required for these. So there's nothing that's quick out of the box, and the cost of it is quite high. So I think the benefits it offers at the moment, when it talks about things like driving the reporting and intimate insights, you can actually get yourself from just building those good reports and looking at it yourself and building the data. You can do that yourself at the moment with a good admin. You don't need this tool, and it's currently not at a stage where it's going to benefit you enough or do more than a good system admin would be able to do for you. I think on the service side, where obviously we see it more, I think there's a bit of a lack of trust with the AI. I don't know about everyone else, but the first thing I do when I get onto Amazon support or talk to my bank is try to bypass it as soon as possible. And I think partly that might be the way that it's designed and built at the moment, but I think it's also due to the limitations of it. And I think the distrust at the moment is that I always feel personally that a human can solve my issue faster than AI can. And I know we've got ChatGPT, and that's very helpful to an extent, but what you find a lot of the time is a short conversation that you can have with someone that has that human mind helps you quicker than a short conversation with AI. So I think personally, it's something that's helpful at the moment and good to monitor and watch. But I think there's a bit of a danger of letting excitement take over, and people are investing in things that you're not really ready for. I think with these bigger companies, it makes a bit more sense because they have this ability to offshore some more of their cash. And I think, yes, there has to be pioneers. And with something so groundbreaking, there's always going to be a lot of things to iron out. But my current advice would be to hold off keep monitoring and just keep watching. It's incredibly exciting what it can do, and it keeps changing day to day. What we had 6 months ago to now is, a crazy step. And it might not be, and there's a lot of people in the creative industry that are suggesting it's going in a way that they don't like. But I think the potential is massive. I just don't think it's at a place yet that would benefit most businesses personally.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I mean, we're seeing big leaps and big strides forward from it, particularly in staffing around the sourcing and sort of submission process. We're seeing a lot of steps forward there using generative AI and the likes to try and help and engage with and work through that process. Is some great partners that are evolving on that front. From the sales perspective, it definitely seems to be behind at the moment on than the sourcing side within staffing. I wouldn't say there's any great solution on the sales front yet, and the solutions that are appearing across the board within staffing, I think it almost feels like we're trying to chuck enough mud at the wall and see what sticks, and see where the level playing field is, and what's going to be commercially viable for businesses. It's a big cost uptake at the moment. As Harry mentioned earlier, at the moment, the ones that are out there require still quite a lot of an awful lot of input for the same amount of output. And even if you're using it for the generative perspective, there's quite a lot of prompts, quite a lot of work that has to be done up front to get the outputs that you need. So it's then trying to figure out the best use of those technologies. I think they're absolutely starting to evolve on the sourcing front, and that's definitely been the first steps that people have been trying to take on it. And there's a number of different partners out there now doing things, and Copilot within Bullhorn itself. But the reality is it's still not there yet. That's still evolving. It's only going to get better. It almost just, as I say, it just feels like we're trying to wait to see what's going to be commercially viable, what's going to be the needs from the markets. It's almost, there's too much opportunity at the moment. We need to figure out what's a commercial opportunity. But I think there's going to be some great things to happen on the sales front. I can really see some good things happening with evolving leads, understanding different interactions, being able to analyze that and provide next steps, taking that out of the hands of some sort of a salesperson or marketing person to decide what that next step's going to be. But at the moment, there's just not the products out there fulfilling that need, certainly not within the Bullhorn space at the moment. So that's definitely an area that I'm interested in seeing where that can help.
Yeah, that's great feedback, by the way. I think if you were the owner and you had that your cigar box with a bunch of 20s in it, you might be careful about how many 20s you give to the AI guys. And so I think this is you want to know about it, to Harry's point, but hold your powder here until someone shows you something that's really compelling. And, especially for some of the mid-market size people. The next topic really is it gets to this complaint that people often say, we are, imagine I'm the chief operating officer for some staffing firm, and we just don't have the tools. We don't have the knowledge inside our team to make this system better. We kind of know what we want to do. We've got some ideas, but we don't know how to make them real. And what's the path forward for a firm like that that's got ideas, has the base core functional systems, but they know they could do better? What's the path forward?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'll jump in on that one if you like. I think it really depends on the type of business and the size of the business. So the smaller the business, they tend to be owner managed. They're still very close to what's happening. They've got a lot of people that are growing in the team, but they tend to be more, delivery and sales focused, not people able to take a step back and strategically look at what's right for the business. And the bigger the team, the bigger the organization, the more likelihood you are to have that type of input into the team. But that doesn't mean to say that they've got the exact knowledge of where it needs to be taken. And that's one of the key things we see here at Newbury, especially is those companies, they can buy in that resource, they can buy in that expertise on a fractional basis, or they can just offer, get some guidance and support us to get it right. We do this thing all the time. Personally, I'm dealing with hundreds of clients over the last few years, and you start to see trends, you start to see similarities in the way people do things. And the reality is a lot of companies, what they want to do is probably about 85% the same as everybody else. There's some core sales and marketing processes that are going to be followed through and completed by most businesses, but that doesn't mean to say that they're doing it correctly. So sometimes you just need that little bit of extra, objective viewpoint from external, being able to look at the system objectively, look at the processes objectively, figure out where the gaps are, and just help. You're great at doing your staffing business, but you're not necessarily great at following through on the processes or setting everything aligned. And as we've talked through in different parts of this chat so far, there's so many moving pieces to this. The system and the data and the processes, they all have an impact on how things are used. So not being an expert in all of those is not a weakness. It's just that your strengths are in doing staffing. Our strengths are in identifying these gaps and being able to put the right systems in place and processes and to look objectively at it. So for me, the key thing here is you can flounder and you can keep investing, but the one thing don't do is invest in new tech to try and solve an internal problem that could be resolved with a different discussion or a tweak in the process. Just get that objective view and see what can be made, because it's just fool's gold to go after another technology to try and solve a problem. You'll end up in 6 months' time wondering why you're spending money on another bit of software that isn't delivering for you.
Yeah, I think that's, again, kind of coming back to it again and again, but it's all about business process versus the CRM and determining what the issue is. And if you're saying people aren't able to use the CRM, most of these systems should be designed in a simple way so that everyone can use them. So it probably comes back to the CRM not being aligned with those business processes and not enabling those internal users to be able to utilize the system correctly. I think the good thing about Salesforce is it has so much to offer in terms of its community and in terms of your learning. So you have two approaches, and normally with these sort of things, it's best to get someone in that has that expertise, and it can bring you up to speed. But you want to look at the long term as well, and you can encourage your employees to learn. You've got trailheads, you've got certifications that you can do. There's a lot of free pieces out there. That's 10 years ago, that's how I got into Salesforce. That's how I learned it before my company implemented it, because I had that desire to learn about it. And I looked, and there are all these things that basically enable me to do so. And I think this is something that's continually opening doors for people. And it's a great thing to do. You can learn it yourself, and then you upskill, and then you can be the person that trains other people within your teams. But I think not being afraid to look at your system and see what's wrong with it, and look externally to bring someone in that can bring you up to speed, is something that's critical as well. Because, like Graham says, absolutely no point in just going out there and thinking that buying a new piece of tech or a new system is going to fix the issue that you have with your current one. People might tell you it's no good, but actually that's nothing to do with the actual technology itself. It's how you built that system.
Harry, Graham, that's a great response to it. So much of what we talked about in the last 35 minutes or so is about process, and that the idea that you got to get process right to really get the most out of the money you spend on these technologies is a lesson that we as consultants know, and it's our story. It's not just the technology. How to improve adoption. It's like, oh, I want to get a better system. Well, okay, get a better system, small s, not the system. It's not HubSpot, Bullhorn CRM, or Salesforce. It's process. It's your discipline around what's in it for me, making sure you get the right admin support. I think this issue around reporting and data it's such low-hanging fruit for us. I mean, it really is. And the comments that we've had around, how to solve things is not settling for the status quo. When people complain about the system, and Harry and Graham, you guys see that all the time. It's you got to respond. You can't just ignore it. You got to dig in and understand why. And people like you are the ones that can listen with the ears of an expert and play it back to the stakeholders and say, okay, here's what we heard. This is how it might actually go forward. I think that's really powerful. You guys made some great comments today, and help me as a sales leader, as a business leader, understand that this CRM thing is not. There are bigger problems that we have than our CRM. We just haven't focused on it in the proper way, and I think you guys have shared a recipe for doing that. So I really thank you. So, Aaron, back to you.
Yeah, no, this was absolutely excellent. So could not thank the three of you enough. I mean, I think we had some phenomenal tips. If anyone was kind of paying attention to the chat, I made sure to include those for everyone that is on the actual webinar. So feel free to share, copy those down, take the information you guys got from Graham, Harry, and Tim as they really kind of led us through what are some different opportunities for our CRM. For everyone that's out there right now, and actually, hold on, I think we might have one quick question. There was a quick question, guys. I think we have 5 minutes here. So with the fix the process, should the technology mold to the process, or the people mold to the technology?
I caveat there and say it's no perfect. I think it's a midpoint. I think firstly, analyzing your process, and it might be that you want to move to a new system because you're looking to change that. But if you're happy with your process and that works really well, and that's something that you want to maintain, then that's kind of the answer for you. So I think it's one of those things where you kind of have to, again, look back at it and then see if that's really working for you as your business. And if you go, all right, there's some failure points here, and actually we could improve the process itself by doing certain things from that side, then change that before you then try and mold that with the technology. And I also think there's always an element with different technologies when you're changing from one legacy system to the new, where you will have to mold to the new technology. It might not be in terms of what you're recording data wise or the actual process itself, but it's always going to be slightly different. And I think trying to enhance that, and I would also say embrace it, because I see constantly clients going, right, let's just build what we currently have in the new system and then we'll change it from there. But it's the worst possible approach that you can take, and not being afraid to kind of lean into that technology itself. You've made a decision to take that, right, and at the end of the day you've made it for the right reasons, and hopefully, and that's the reason why you should lean into it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's some great points there, Harry. I definitely agree with that. I think it's with any of these things, you need a compromise on both sides. You can't bend technology to fit people without usually going off piste of what makes that product good and strong. You don't want to take it away from its core strengths too much. Similarly, you don't want to leave the system and force people to work in a completely different way that's unnatural for them. You get really bad adoption. They really don't like it, and you get a struggle then further downstream with data and inaccuracies that expose themselves during reporting. Key thing for me is a bit of compromise on both sides. So try and meet somewhere in the middle, as Harry alluded to there, and understand the key strengths. So utilize the technology for its key strengths. If there's certain functionality that can help take away certain processes from the team, that's definitely an improvement. You want to be moving that and making the team easier, more flexible. But my first port would always be, if you know your processes and you know your technology, you always want your people to be right first. You want your people to be doing what they can do naturally with the minimum amount of effort, as long as the technology can follow suit. If it can't, and you've got technology that's not quite there, how can you bend the technology to meet it? And what changes can you make to the team to try and meet that gap in the middle somewhere?
And Graham and Harry, that issue of changing the system is it's either work with what you've got in terms of our investments you've already made, or only potentially then do you look at an alternative system, a big, swapping out the core technology. I think that decision is one made with some insights from others, so that, because it's a big step, and stepping into that change management scenario is a big ask for a firm. And so I'd really like to get the most out of what I already own before I go, make a salesman's day and have them sell me a new solution.
Yeah, and that's the thing, when you see these demos, you're not looking at how it will work for your system. You're looking at this really flashy piece that they're going to walk you through, and you're going to see all the glitz and glamour, and it's very easy to kind of get caught up in that. But you kind of have to wheel yourself back, and remember that if you're not fixing it at the start, then it's not going to be fixed by having this glitzy glamoury new system.
100%.
Yeah.
And I think, you guys, this brings us right to the top of the hour. And hopefully, Aaron, this answered some of questions that you had on that front. And actually there was a webinar we did 2 weeks ago around change management, which is still available. You guys can download that. And it was a great one with Amy Yakowski, Sean Beatty, and Joe Calzone, which also might help with that, just around the molding to technology or people molding to that side of things. For everyone on the call, if you guys do want to connect, please feel free to reach out to any of our panelists here. You've got their emails: Tim Jackson, Harry Staniforth, and Graham Winman. You guys, thank you so much. Like, could not have had a better webinar here, and excited for any follow-on questions that come in from all of the attendees. Thank you guys for joining.
Thank you.
Thanks everybody.
Everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.